Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. Well, so much for the summer lull. Even as the album release schedule has slowed down just a little bit, which allowed me to get through some of my backlog, it's been a reasonably busy week on the charts, thanks to even more change-ups in country radio, a slice of album tracks from Future of all people, and one of the biggest leaps to the top 10 that I've seen in quite some time. So let's talk about that top 10, shall we? Cheerleader by Omi holds on to number 1 for another week with dominance in sales, strong streaming, and solid gains in airplay that can offset a slight slip in YouTube. All of that was enough to hold back Can't Feel My Face by the Weeknd to number 2, which might rule streaming right now, but seemed to abruptly slow its gains in radio, and was overshadowed by a few other big songs this week in sales. Now that'll probably change when the video hits YouTube today to chart for next week, but we'll see what happens. Beneath it, to my inevitable dismay, Watch Me by Silento picked up to number 3, thanks to healthy gains pretty much across the board, especially in sales. The slowest on radio, hopefully because programmers think that they can stall out a bad dance craze out. People just get sick of it before they have a chance to go to number 1, and God bless them for that. And yet again, it held off Bad Blood by Taylor Swift and Kendrick Lamar at number 4, which sent the week wavering at the top of airplay before starting to drop a little bit, with slightly weaker sales and only really holding steady on YouTube. I reckon it'll be dropping out of the top 10 fairly soon, and it's not the only one. I See You Again by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth falls to number 5, only held up on YouTube as it spent the week losing airplay and streaming hard. And yet Trap Queen by Fetty Wap slipped to number 6 as well, only where it is thanks to sales, streaming, and a little bit of YouTube left. But that's not all the Fetty Wap we've got, because in the only major game we had this week, leading up to number 7, we've got My Way featuring Monty. Considering this is probably my favorite Fetty Wap song to date, especially with the Drake remix, I'm okay with this. Largely driven on massive sales and not much else at this point. It'll be interesting to see if streaming or the radio catch up or if he drops a video, because I can see this getting bigger, maybe even cracking the top 5. Beyond that, Fight Song by Rachel Platten holds on to number 8 thanks to sales and airplay holding steady and nothing else. Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon slips to number 9, mostly because sales and airplay spent the week dropping and oddly holding steady in streaming. And Lead On by Major Lazer, DJ Snake, and Mia dropped to number 10 thanks to incredibly strong YouTube and streaming, and yet sales and airplay that are a fair bit weaker. Definitely be interesting to see how long it'll stick in the top 10, or they'll go higher given some of the drops above it. And speaking of our losers, let's take a look at our other losers and dropouts, with the latter category having a fair few. As predicted in earlier weeks, Little Toy Guns by Carrie Underwood unfortunately had to make an early exit, but the rest, they had their due time in the spotlight, with Donut by Billy Currington, Somebody by Natalie LaRose featuring Jeremiah, thank God that's gone, and especially Style by Taylor Swift on their way out. Bit of a shame with that last one, I did like Style. The one big disappointment for me here was I Really Like You by Carly Rae Jepsen dropping out. Not that I love the song, although it definitely has grown on me, because this is a plain failure in marketing and release strategy. Her album Emotion dropped back in June in Japan, and since everything leaks internationally these days, I already covered the album, and it was a surprisingly solid record. But with the release date in the States and stateside set for mid-August, she's lost all of her momentum behind I Really Like You, and she's got to start fresh with a new single, losing all the summer rush that she really could have leveraged here. But putting aside terrible marketing, we actually had a pretty good crop of losers too, especially on country radio. Girl Crush by Little Big Town finally takes a hit down to 36. Love You Like That by Kanan Smith drops down to 62 on its way out naturally, and so does Baby My Love Song by Easton Corbin dropping to 90. The big surprise is that Sangria by Blake Shelton fell hard to 58. Outside of Lonely Tonight with Ashley Monroe, Blake Shelton has not had a good release run, and this song's all the more evidence of that. And he wasn't the only one flopping hard. This Summer's Gonna Hurt Like a Motherfucker by Maroon 5 plummeted down to 64, hopefully on its way out for being the garbage song that I think everybody realized the first time they heard it. And finally, we've got Bright by Echo Smith, which is on its way out gracefully to 80. Not really a lot to say about this song. The song doesn't really raise much of an impact for me. But since we've already talked about our one big gainer, let's talk about our solitary returning entry, shall we? Well, might as well get this out of the way. Yes, I'm still disappointed that the title track from Flora Georgia Line's last album is not a tribute to the classic musical, or for a change of pace, the deep cut song Confession, which is a genuinely great ballad that's later in that album. Instead, we get another generic bro country anthem with gratuitous autotune, choppy drum machines, and an oddly lumpy chorus that spends too much time in minor key progressions to really build to a satisfying moment and conclusion. And like the majority of Joey Moy's production, it's too busy to give the melody or groove more flow. In short, the last time time I remembered this song, so I covered their album back when I reviewed it last year. I haven't thought about this song since, and I can bet after I'm done with this episode of Billboard Breakdown, I'm not going to be thinking of it again. Just saying. And now on to our new arrivals, starting with number 100, Dance Like We're Making Love by Ciara. The follow-up single from Ciara's last record, Jackie, and a pretty natural progression to one of the better songs after the lead-off single, I Bet. Sure, it's not at that song's level in terms of the writing or the production, relying on this brittle snap and beat that used some misty multi-tracking to give Ciara a little bit more swell against a very minimalist melody, but yeah, in terms of a sultry dance gem that's sexy as hell, Ciara absolutely nails it here. It's not lyrically complex, but this song definitely doesn't need to be. I do wish the crescendo hit a little bit harder after the bridge, and this song maybe had slightly more refined production, especially in that snap. But you know what? That's me nitpicking. It does exactly what it needs to do, and does it really well. Definitely recommend this song. Number 99, Save It for a Rainy Day by Kenny Chesney.
It's too cold to be thinking about. You gonna take this heartbreak and tuck it away. Save it for a rainy day.
Well, I forgot that this song had existed, but I'm not exactly surprised that Kenny Chesney's positioning it as another single off of the big revival. It's a summer song about ignoring heartbreak with lightweight acoustic texture and a generally agreeable melody with just a hint of organ, and after the second that it's done playing, you'll join me in forgetting that this song ever existed. And really, I think the biggest factor as to why that is Kenny Chesney himself. His delivery is so mellow and inert, he sounds completely on autopilot, and if he doesn't care, why should I? So in other words, it's fine background music for cookouts and barbecues and fishing, but it's not rising above that, and really, Kenny Chesney, you're capable of so much better. Number 95, Blow a Bag by Future.
I blow a bag today. I put a whip on the bed. I blow a bag today. I blow a bag today. I blow a bag today. Child, that one for me so crazy. I blow a bag today. I blow a bag today. I blow a bag today. I don't do nothing for kids.
So this is the first of two Future songs that charted this week off of his better than expected but still not especially good album Dirty Sprite 2, and it's by far the weaker one. Provided you get past Future's voice and Future's personality, tough step, I know. The blubbery, washed out synth against the thin trap hi-hats are completely generic, and the content only gets interesting when Future mentions how his grandfather would be proud of where he is right now, and how he hopes he can stay humble despite having all this money. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but blowing a large bag of money on luxury cars at the mall doesn't seem like something that would evoke a lot of pride from a grandparent, and it sure as hell doesn't make you seem humble, Future. In other words, this song falls directly into the heap of recycled trap bangers that Future's just shoveled out, and it's not even one of his better ones. Next, number 85, Locked Away by Rock City featuring Adam Levine.
Tell me honestly, would you still love me the same if I showed you my flaws? If I couldn't be strong, tell me honestly, would you still love me the same?
I've got mixed feelings about covering this song, mostly because I never expected to see Rock City in front of a microphone, let alone with Adam Levine of all people. And for those of you who don't know, this duo is a pair of songwriters who certainly have an eclectic set of songs credited to them. I mean, on the one hand, we get tracks that I can appreciate and like Shower by Becky G or I Bet by Ciara, but on the other hand, we have songs like We Can't Stop and 23 for Miley Cyrus, and Pour It Up for Rihanna, and Only for Nicki Minaj, and When I Grew Up for the Pussycat Dolls. Suffice it to say, they've made a lot more crap than quality. But now that they're signed to Dr. Luke's label Kemosabe, another bad sign, they decided to team up with Adam Levine to drop a single for their upcoming album titled #What Dreams Are Made Of. But putting aside the fact they were stealing a title from a Hillary Duff song that I actually really like, does their lead-off single manage to work? Actually, I think it does. Yeah, it's still very much of a pop-friendly brand of reggae, and there isn't as much of a melodic foundation to it outside of the chorus, but there is a level of polish in the production and layering, especially with the percussion and horns, that really does sound good. And I'll say it, Adam Levine Levine hasn't sounded this good in years, sinking more to his mid to low range. You wonder why he wastes so much time caterwauling in his falsetto. I think my biggest nitpicks though come with Rock City themselves. Now they bring some island-inspired flavor in their vocals, they don't exactly stand out as all that distinctive. Now that said, I do like the lyrical sentiment in asking the girl whether she'd stick around if our frontmen are dead broke, even if it does push the melodrama with the die for me line. As it is, I can mostly enjoy this song, even if it is a little bit formulaic for me. After all, there is a way of doing this formula well. The best person who did it was Timbaland with The Way I Are, but hey, baby steps. Number 81, Strip It Down by Luke Bryan.
Everything I need in them white cotton sheets. Dirty dance me slow in the summertime heat. Feel my belt turn loose from these old blue jeans. We both know that we lost it somehow. Let's get it found. Strip it down, down, down.
You know, if I was in the office of Luke Bryan's promotional team, I'd be getting a little bit worried right now. I mean, sure, the tours is still selling out massively, and many would argue he's still very much an A-list country act, but with the tide turning on bro country and his lead-off single Kick the Dust Up underperforming on the charts, his next song needs to come on strong or Luke Bryan could be in a fair bit of trouble. This time actually featuring a writing credit for the guy. And the first thing that needs to be stressed is that this is barely a country song, falling very much into the same vein as Burn It Down by Jason Aldean in its pseudo R&B vein, with the stiff drum machine beat and the washed out guitars. And yeah, Luke Bryan is the biggest asset in the song with a solid baritone. He's always been a good performer, but stripping it down isn't all that sexy of a term. It reminds me more of carpentry than anything else. But putting aside easy hot wood jokes, it's the second verse that kind of irks me here. Why drop her cell phone on the ground and then break it? Dude, not cool. In the end, okay, I do like more the melodic focus to the song, but with this production and this focus, I'm not really a fan of this. And that upcoming album that I'm gonna review, yeah, I gotta admit it, not that excited. Number 68, Where You At by Future featuring Drake.
Where your ass was at, dog? Niggas try to run off. Where your ass at, dog? You made me put his gun out. Where your ass was at, dog? You went to switch sides. Where your ass was at, dog? Niggas spread lies. Where your ass was at, dog? I'm about to come slide. Where your ass was at, dog? And I was serving pie.
Our second Future entry, and one that I actually don't mind, as I mentioned when I reviewed the album last week. For one, Future's choice to opt for a lower, darker tone in his voice and in some of his subject matter as he questions where one of his boys was at when Future was struggling in the trap, and with the desaturated rattle far in the background anchoring a fragment of a melody, the mood actually feels cohesive for once, and Future's actually maintained some focus in his bars. And sure, to some extent most of the song feels like a setup to Drake's verse, which actually has some really solid bars and shows him able to match Future's flow pretty well, but I'm not gonna deny that he really works here. Yeah, I can't believe I'm gonna say it about a Future track, but I'll call it when I say it. I like this. Number 60, How Deep Is Your Love by Calvin Harris and Disciples.
Hit me harder again. How deep is your love? How deep is your love? How deep is your love? So like the ocean, pull me closer again.
So I've made no secret of the fact that I don't like Calvin Harris. Mostly because in the EDM landscape, he produces some of the most recycled and yet simultaneously the most annoying tracks without distinctive personality. And I'd hoped that as EDM fades from the public eye, he'd recede with it, only for him to simultaneously hop on the deep house trend with London electronica trio Disciples to drop this single. And look, by the standards of Calvin Harris, it's not bad, mostly because the choice to go into deep house has required that he develop at least a little bit of restraint. What it hasn't developed is personality. The wavering vocals in A Worldston, they aren't bad, but they aren't great. And while the piano does have a solid melodic foundation with the low-end synth, the chorus feels cluttered with the sampled backing vocal, and none of it has any organic depth or punch that, say, DJ Snake's material has. And like usual, the lyrics are barely worth mentioning. At this point for me, Calvin Harris's high watermark was the tinny, ragged Outside with Ellie Goulding. If I'm being honest, I don't care enough to see if he passes it, because this song certainly doesn't. And finally, number 22, She's Kinda Hot by 5 Seconds of Summer.
We are the leaders of the not coming back, but we're alright though. Yeah, we're alright though. We are the kings and the queens of the new broken scene. Yeah, we're alright though.
So let me be blunt for a second and ignite an inevitable flame war. One Direction are effectively over at this point. With Zayn's departure and only unconfirmed rumors that he's coming back, I reckon they got maybe one more album before they break up. It's gonna happen. And that leaves behind the biggest group that One Direction helped propel into stardom, 5 Seconds of Summer. Now, I mostly like their debut album. It was clumsy to be sure, but kind of endearing for its innocence and attempt to reclaim the throne vacated by Blink-182 and lightweight, inoffensive pop rock. And to their credit, they definitely took steps to improve pretty much across the board for their lead-off single, She's Kinda Hot, for their sophomore release, even though they might as well just cut checks to Green Day and The Offspring for cribbing generous notes from Basket Case, Self-Esteem, and especially Why Don't You Get a Job. But the production is rougher, Luke Hemmings' voice is getting better for this sort of material, the hook in the chorus is actually pretty strong, and I actually kind of like the lyrics and enough self-awareness to realize that the asinine behavior they're writing about is doomed to backfire on them, but they're gonna run with it while they can. It's a very teenage sentiment. It's one that not played too obnoxiously to really grate on my nerves. No, it's nothing all that original in terms of pop rock, and that guitar solo is not gonna win any awards, but on weeks like this, I like this. I'll take what I can get. So that was our week, and really there was not any definite standouts, one way or the other. For the best of the week, I think I'm going to give it to Ciara for Let's Dance Like We're Making Love, with honorable mention going to She's Kinda Hot by 5 Seconds of Summer. As I said, I liked it. As for the worst, well, I guess the worst of the week is going to Anything Goes by Florida Georgia Line, with a dishonorable mention going to Future for Blow the Bag, in both cases for being tired, recycled, and completely generic examples of their genre. Let's hope for something a little bit more exciting next week. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.